The stranger in the rain, rain hammered against the cracked windows of Maya Chin's cramped apartment above the laundromat. The smell of industrial detergent mixed with the musty odor of old fabric filled the air as she hunched over her ancient sewing machine. The needle catching the dim light from a single bare bulb. Her fingers moved with practiced precision despite the tremor that had developed since the accident 6 months ago. The door chimed downstairs. Maya glanced at the clock. 11:47 p.m. No one came this late, unless they were desperate. She descended the narrow stairs, her leg brace clicking against each step. Through the fogged glass, she could make out a tall figure in an expensive coat, water dripping from his dark hair. "We're closed," she called through the door. "Please." His voice was rough, edged with something that might have been panic. "I need help." Maya hesitated. The smart thing would be to send him away. But something in his tone made her fingers move to the deadbolt. The man who stepped inside was beautiful in the way that broken things sometimes were. His designer suit was torn at the shoulder, blood seeping through the white fabric. His green eyes held a wildness that Maya recognized because she saw it in her own mirror every morning. "I'm Ethan Cross," he said, pressing his hand against his shoulder. "I know this looks bad, but I'm not dangerous. I just need someone to fix this." "Eh?" He gestured to his torn jacket. "Tonight." Maya studied his face. She'd learned to read people in the months since everything fell apart. This man was running from something, but he wasn't lying about being harmless. "It'll cost extra." "For emergency work," she said finally. "Money isn't a problem." He reached into his pocket with his good arm and pulled out a roll of bills that made Maya's breath catch. "How much?" 500. He didn't blink. "Done." As Maya led him to the back room where she kept her supplies, she noticed how his eyes swept every corner, cataloging exits. When he removed his jacket, she saw the wound wasn't deep, but the way he moved suggested he was familiar with being hurt. "What happened?" she asked, threading her needle. "Business meeting went sideways." His jaw tightened. "Turns out not everyone appreciates honest negotiations." Maya began to work, her damaged hands steadier than they'd been in months. The silence stretched between them, comfortable despite its weight. She was aware of him watching her. It's not in the way men usually looked at her since the scars, but with something approaching reverence. "You're good at this," he said quietly. "I used to be better." Words slipped out before she could stop them. "What changed?" Maya's hands stilled. The accident. Fire. Her partner's betrayal. The loss of everything she'd worked for. Life. Ethan leaned forward slightly. "Maybe life isn't finished with you yet." The needle slipped, pricking her finger. A drop of blood fell onto the expensive fabric, and Maya cursed under her breath. But when she looked up, Ethan was staring at the small red stain with an expression she couldn't read. "Perfect," he whispered. "What?" "Nothing." He stood abruptly, pulling on the repaired jacket. "Thank you. I'll be back tomorrow night." "For what?" Ethan paused at the door, his hand on the frame. "I think I'm going to need more than just my clothes fixed." After he left, Maya stood in the empty shop, her heart beating faster than it had in months. She looked down at her blood-stained finger, then at the money he'd left on the counter. Twice what she'd asked for. Outside, lightning split the sky, and Maya realized that for the first time since the accident, she wasn't thinking about dying. The photograph Ethan returned the next night at exactly 11:30. Wearing a different suit, but the same haunted expression. This time he brought coffee and a leather jacket with a ripped lining. "You don't need your clothes fixed," Maya said, accepting the cup anyway. The warmth felt good against her scarred palms. "No." He sat on the worn stool beside her workstation. "I don't." They stared at each other in the dim light, the sewing machine silent between them. Rain tapped against the windows again, softer tonight, like fingers asking for entry. "Why are you really here?" Maya asked. Ethan pulled something from his pocket. A photograph, edges worn soft from handling. He placed it on the table between them. Maya's breath stopped. The woman in the photo could have been her twin. Same dark hair, same sharp cheekbones, same scar above the left eyebrow. But the woman was smiling, her arm around a younger Ethan, both of them standing in front of a building Maya recognized. Her old design studio? Before the fire? Her name was Lily Chen, Ethan said, his voice cracking on the name. She was my fiancée. She died 6 months ago. Maya's hands trembled worse than ever. The fire. You know about it? I was there. Maya stood abruptly, her leg brace scraping against the floor. I was her partner. We built that studio together. And when it burned, everyone said it was my fault. That I was careless with the fabric steamer, that I was working too late, it wasn't your fault.
Ow.
The words hit her like a physical blow. What? Ethan's green eyes were wet. The fire was started deliberately, by someone who wanted to destroy what Lily and I were building together. She wasn't just a designer, Maya. She was helping me expose a network of people trafficking stolen goods through fashion houses. People who would kill to keep their secrets. Maya sank back onto her stool, the room spinning. You're saying someone murdered her? And they made it look like an accident? Made sure you survived with just enough injuries to be blamed, to be broken. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. I've spent 6 months hunting them, and 3 weeks ago I found proof. The man who hired me for that business meeting you saw the result of, he's connected to them. He knew I was getting close. Why come to me? Because when I saw you through that window, working with those damaged hands, still creating beauty from broken things, I knew. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. You're the only person who loved her as much as I did. The only one who understands what we lost. Maya felt tears burning tracks down her cheeks, for the first time since the fire. All these months, she'd believed the lie. Believed she was responsible. Believed she deserved the pain. I can't help you, she said. I'm not that person anymore. Yes, you are. Ethan reached across the table, his hand hovering just above hers. Not touching, but close enough that she could feel the heat of him. And I need you. Because the man who killed Lily, who destroyed your life, he's going to strike again in 2 days. Another studio? Another designer? Another fire? How do you know? Because I've been tracking his pattern. And because he's my brother. The photograph slipped from Maya's fingers, falling face down on the table between them. And the lights flickered once before the entire shop plunged into darkness. The betrayal, the emergency lights cast Ethan's face in harsh shadows as he told her everything. His brother, Marcus Cross, had built an empire moving counterfeit luxury goods through legitimate fashion houses. When Lily discovered the operation, Marcus had made a choice. Family or money, Maya said bitterly, helping Ethan spread documents across her work table. He chose wrong. He chose what he always chooses. Ethan's finger traced a pattern on one of the papers connecting names and dates. Power. The fire was a message. Anyone who threatens his operation dies. For 2 days, they planned. Maya's hands grew steadier with purpose, her mind sharper than it had been in months. Ethan brought evidence. She provided insider knowledge of how fashion studios operated. They worked in comfortable silence, broken only by the scratch of pencils and the hum of her sewing machine as she created the trap. A custom piece, embedded with a tracker. Beautiful enough that Marcus wouldn't resist claiming it as his own. On the 3rd night, Maya finished the final stitch. A jacket that would have been her masterpiece before the fire. Maybe still was. It's perfect, Ethan breathed, standing so close she could feel his warmth against her back. You're remarkable. She turned, and suddenly they were inches apart. His hand came up, hesitating, then gently traced the scar above her eyebrow. She had one just like this, he whispered. From a childhood fall. I know. I was there when it happened. Something shifted in the space between them. Not replacement, but recognition. 2 people shaped by the same loss, fitting together in their brokenness. Ethan kissed her. Soft at first, then desperate, like drowning people finding air. Maya's damaged hands fisted in his shirt, and for the first time since the fire, she felt alive. They broke apart, breathing hard. This is wrong, Maya said. I know. She was everything to both of us. I know. Ethan pressed his forehead to hers. But she's gone. And we're still here. Still broken. Still fighting. Phone buzzed. Ethan pulled back, checking the screen. His face went pale. What? Marcus took the bait. He's at the studio now. Ethan grabbed his coat. The police are on their way. It's over. Maya should have felt relief. Victory. But something cold settled in her stomach as she watched Ethan move toward the door. Wait, she said. How did Marcus know about the jacket? We didn't tell anyone. Ethan froze, his hand on the doorknob. Ethan, how did he know? When he turned, his face was different, colder. The wildness in his eyes was calculation, not pain. You're smarter than I thought, he said softly. Lily always said you were brilliant. Maya's legs nearly gave out. No, I'm sorry. And he sounded it, which somehow made it worse. Marcus isn't my brother. He's my partner. The fire, the trafficking network, all of it. We built it together. But Lily found proof, and she was going to destroy everything. You killed her. The words came out as a whisper. I loved her. Then's voice cracked. I loved her more than anything, but she wouldn't listen. Wouldn't understand that we'd gone too far to stop, so I made a choice. The wound. The torn clothes. You came to me to what? Finish the job? No. He stepped toward her, and Maya stumbled back against the work table. I came because I needed to know if you had copies of what Lily found. If you were a threat, and now? Ethan pulled out a small device from his pocket. Now I know you're just broken. Too damaged to be dangerous. The tracker in that jacket? It's a bomb, Maya. When the police arrive at that studio, there won't be any evidence left. Just another tragic fire. Maya's hand closed around her sewing scissors, hidden behind her back. And me. I really am sorry. Ethan's finger moved to the trigger. But I can't leave loose ends. Maya lunged, scissors flashing in the dim light, but Ethan was faster. He caught her wrist, twisting until the scissors clattered to the floor. She screamed, all the rage and grief of 6 months exploding out of her. They struggled, crashing into furniture, her leg brace making her clumsy. Ethan pinned her against the wall, the device still in his hand. I didn't want this, he said, and she could see tears on his face. I wanted you to just let it go. To move on, like you did, Maya spat, by murdering the woman you loved. His grip loosened for just a second. Just enough. Maya drove her knee up, connecting hard. Ethan doubled over, and she grabbed the device from his hand. Her damaged fingers shook as she stared at the trigger. Maya, wait, she pressed it. Nothing happened. Ethan's laugh was bitter as he straightened, one hand pressed to his stomach. You think I'd put the real trigger in your hands? The bomb is on a timer. In 3 minutes, that studio explodes with or without police inside. Then I'll warn them. Maya dove for her phone, but Ethan was there, smashing it against the wall. No one's saving anyone tonight. He grabbed his coat. I gave you a chance to walk away from this. To live a small, broken life. That's more than I gave Lily. He walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, these last 3 days with you, they were real. The only real thing I've felt since she died. The door closed behind him, and Maya stood in the wreckage of her shop, sirens beginning to wail in the distance, counting down the seconds until more people died. Because she'd been too broken to see the truth. The sacrifice Maya's hands moved without thinking. Muscle memory from years of creation taking over. She couldn't call the police. Couldn't warn them in time. But she knew exactly where that studio was. The same building where Lily died, where Maya should have died. She grabbed the keys to the ancient delivery van the laundromat owner let her use. Her legs screamed protest as she threw herself into the driver's seat, but pain was just noise now. Static behind the roar of purpose. The city blurred past. Rain-slicked streets reflected neon like spilled paint. 2 minutes. Maya's phone was destroyed, but Lily had been paranoid about backups. Everything documented, everything saved, including the one thing Maya had never looked at because it hurt too much. The video file on the laptop hidden in her apartment. The one labeled, If Something Happens to Me. 1 minute 30. The studio loomed ahead, dark, except for a single light on the 3rd floor. Maya could see shadows moving inside. Police, they'd walked right into Ethan's trap. She slammed the van into park, half on the sidewalk, and ran. The leg brace made her gait uneven, lurching, but she'd learned to move fast when it mattered. The front door was locked. She grabbed a brick from the construction site next door and smashed through. Alarms shrieked. Good, maybe they'd evacuate. Police! Get out! Her voice was raw as she took the stairs 2 at a time, her damaged hands leaving bloody prints on the railing. There's a bomb! 45 seconds. The 3rd floor. She could see them now, 3 officers examining the jacket she'd made. Her masterpiece. Her trap. Her weapon. Run. Maya screamed, and they turned, hands moving to their weapons. It's a bomb. Get out. Get out. Something in her voice, in her face, must have convinced them. They moved, grabbing the jacket, heading for the stairs. But Maya knew bombs. New fashion. Knew exactly where Ethan would have hidden it, not in the jacket itself. In the mannequin beneath. 20 seconds. Leave it. She lunged forward, shoving the nearest officer toward the stairs. Just go. They hesitated. Training versus instinct. A woman with scars and wild eyes versus procedure. I built it, Maya lied. I know how to defuse it. Go. They went. Pounding footsteps receding. And Maya stood alone in the studio that had once been hers, staring at the mannequin wearing her creation. 10 seconds, she thought about. Lily. How she'd looked the last time Maya saw her, excited about some new evidence she'd found. We're going to change everything, Lily had said. Maya had believed her. 5 seconds. She thought about Ethan, the way he'd looked at her with something like love. Something like regret. How easy it would have been to believe he was real. 3. She thought about 6 months of pain. Of believing she deserved to suffer. Of being too broken to fight back. 2. Maya grabbed the mannequin, her damaged hands screaming, and hurled it through the 3rd floor window. 1. The explosion lit up the night. Glass and flame and the roar of destruction. Maya felt herself lifted, thrown, the world tumbling end over end. Then concrete. Pain. Darkness. When she opened her eyes, she was on the street. Someone had dragged her clear. Her ears rang, blood streaming from a dozen cuts, but she was breathing. The building burned above her, but the flames were contained to one corner, controllable. The officers stood nearby, radio crackling, backup arriving. Lives saved. You're insane, one of them said, but his hands were gentle as he checked her pulse. Completely insane. Yeah, Maya coughed, tasting copper. I get that a lot. An ambulance arrived. Paramedics swarmed. But before they loaded her in, Maya saw something that made her blood freeze. Across the street, half hidden in shadow, Ethan Cross watched her. His face was illuminated by the burning building, and his expression was something Maya couldn't name. He raised one hand. Not a wave. Not a goodbye. An acknowledgement. Then he turned and disappeared into the rain. Maya tried to call out 2 point, but her voice was gone. By the time the paramedics followed her gaze, the street was empty in the ambulance. As consciousness faded, Maya felt something in her pocket. She pulled it out with clumsy fingers. A USB drive. And a note in handwriting she recognized as Ethan's. All of it. I couldn't destroy it. Couldn't destroy her completely. Maybe you're not the only one who's broken. Maybe that's why I needed you to live. Finish what she started, please. The paramedic took the note from her shaking hand as her eyes closed. Ma'am, stay with us. Stay awake. But Maya was already falling into darkness, clutching the USB drive like a lifeline, wondering if monsters could love and what that meant for the parts of her that had loved one back. 3 months later, Maya stood in front of a federal courthouse, her leg brace replaced with a barely noticeable limp, her hands steadier than they'd been in a year. The USB drive had contained everything. Names, transactions, murders, Lily's meticulous documentation of a criminal empire that stretched across 3 continents. Marcus's Cross was in custody. 17 other people had been arrested. The fashion world was reeling. But Ethan had disappeared. Maya walked into her new studio, smaller than the one she'd shared with Lily, but hers in a way nothing had been since the fire. Commissions covered her walls. Apparently nearly dying to save police officers made for good publicity. Or maybe people just liked a comeback story. The door chimed. Maya turned, expecting a client. Ethan stood in the doorway, wearing clothes she'd repaired 3 months ago. The torn shoulder was perfect now, no sign of damage. He looked thinner, harder, like something carved from stone and regret. You shouldn't be here, Maya said. Her hand moved to her phone. I know. He didn't step inside. I'm turning myself in tomorrow, but I needed to see you first. Why? To say I'm sorry. To tell you that everything I did was monstrous. That loving Lily didn't excuse it. That loving you didn't excuse it. Maya's breath caught. Don't. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Ethan's green eyes held that same wildness, but tempered now with something like acceptance. I'm just telling you the truth. These 3 months running, all I could think about was those 3 days with you. How you looked at me like I was worth saving. How it felt to be near someone as broken as me and not feel alone. You murdered the woman I loved. I know. Tried to kill me, I know. I should hate. You should. He finally stepped inside, slowly, giving her time to run or call for help. But you don't, because you understand what it's like to make a choice you can't take back. To live with the weight of it. Maya's hands trembled. I saved people. You killed them. We're not the same. No. Ethan stopped 3 feet away. But we're both trying to figure out how to live with what we've done. How to stitch ourselves back together when all the pieces don't fit anymore. Is that what you came here for? Absolution. No. I came to give you something. He pulled an envelope from his pocket, placed it on her work table. Lily's designs. The ones from before. Before me, before the trafficking, before everything went wrong. She was brilliant, Maya. You both were. These belong to you now. Maya's eyes burned. I can't. You can. You'll make them beautiful. Like you do with everything broken that comes through your door. Ethan moved back toward the entrance. I'm sorry I came to you looking for answers about whether you were a threat. Sorry I stayed because I was too selfish to walk away. Sorry I fell in love with you while lying about everything. Don't say that. It's true. All of it. The lies and the love. Both real. Both damning. He paused at the threshold. The police know where I'll be tomorrow at noon. I left instructions. But tonight, I needed you to know that the best parts of these last months were real. The only real things I've felt since I destroyed everything. Maya watched him turn to leave, and something in her chest cracked. The careful walls she'd built, the moral certainty she'd wrapped around herself like armor. Ethan. He stopped. I don't forgive you. I can't. I know. But I understand. What it's like to love someone so much, you'd burn the world to keep them. What it's like to lose them anyway. To realize too late that some choices don't have good answers. He looked back at her, and the pain in his face was mirror to her own. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me. Just go. Turn yourself in. Spend the rest of your life trying to balance the scales. It won't be enough. It'll never be enough. But it's the only option left. Ethan nodded once. Then he was gone, the door chiming soft in his wake. Maya stood alone in her studio, surrounded by half-finished projects and the ghosts of people she'd loved. She opened the envelope with shaking hands. Lily's designs spilled out, each one a memory, each one a promise of what could have been. She picked up her needle, threaded it with steady hands, and began to sew. Outside, the city breathed and moved and lived. People made choices they'd regret. People tried to fix what they'd broken. People loved and lost and somehow kept going. Maya stitched a hem on one of Lily's designs, her blood-stained fingers creating beauty from pain, and realized that healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about learning to carry the weight, to move forward with the scars, to keep creating even when the world burned. A year later, Maya's studio was famous. Lily Chen's lost designs, brought to life by her former partner, Ethan Cross, was serving multiple life sentences. The trafficking network was dismantled. Justice, cold and imperfect, had been served. And on quiet nights, when rain hammered against her windows, Maya sometimes thought about a beautiful broken man who'd walked into her shop looking for salvation. Who'd found it in her hands, even as he destroyed everything around him. She thought about the complexity of love, how it could exist alongside hate, how monsters could be tender, how the scarred could recognize each other in the darkness and feel less alone, even if only for a moment. Maya picked up her needle and continued to sew, stitch by careful stitch, mending what could be mended, carrying what couldn't, and somehow impossibly learning to live again. The end.